Averse and adverse, two words that are often confused. Here's how to tell the difference. Averse is an adjective or describing word, meaning to have a strong dislike of, a repugnance for, or an opposition to something. For example, I consider myself a risk-averse investor. In other words, I dislike taking risks with my investments. She was very averse to the idea of having her work edited. In other words, she didn't like to be criticised. She's not averse to the idea of marriage. In other words, she's open to being married. And a classic piece of ironic British understatement here, he's not exactly averse to the occasional tipple. In other words, he quite likes a tipple being an alcoholic drink. So some things to notice here. First of all, averse is commonly paired with to when expressing what it is the subject has a dislike of. So she was very averse to the idea of having her work edited. She's not averse to marriage. He's not averse to a tipple. Secondly, as the last two examples show, we often use the expression not averse to express the idea that someone is happy to consider something or even has a fondness for it. In both cases, the connotation is potentially that she is very open to the idea of marriage and he likes to get drunk quite often. Adverse with a D has a very different meaning from averse. Where averse describes someone's feelings towards something, adverse describes a situation as harmful or negative in some way. For example, the train was cancelled because of the adverse weather conditions. In other words, harsh or potentially perilous conditions. Commentators predict the currency will fall because of the adverse economic environment. Again, a difficult or harmful environment. And her work was subject to adverse criticism. In other words, her work was criticised severely. So it's easy to see why averse and adverse are often confused, because both have negative connotations. But the key difference is that averse is often used of people. It expresses someone's negative attitude towards something. In contrast, adverse is usually used to describe the effect of something, as here, the weather, the economy, the criticism. These two different meanings are illustrated in the sentence, she was averse to reading the adverse criticism of her work. In other words, she didn't like to read the negative criticism. One way to remember the difference between averse and adverse is to think of other words that are related to them. For example, the adjective averse is related to the noun aversion, meaning a dislike of. Similarly, the adjective adverse is related to the noun adversity, meaning hardship or difficulty. So we might talk about someone having an aversion to criticism, but their aversion might be well-founded because it may cause them to experience adversity. So just remember, use averse to talk about the way people feel and adverse to describe effects or conditions. I'm Dr. Clare Lynch. Subscribe to the channel for more quick writing tips.